I mean, I really had I had just become a member of the Actors Studio, and I didn't really want to do it.
You probably thought Gilligan's Island was just the cute, harmless laughter of the 1960s, a sunny island, a few coconuts and 7 castaways who somehow became a family. If so, you've only heard half the story. The other half CBS never wanted you to know. Years after the series ended, one crew member finally broke the silence with a sentence that shocked the entire fan community. On screen, we were a family. Off screen, someone was pushed so far they nearly broke. And that was only the first door cracked open into the show's darker backstage reality. Because behind those cheerful laughs were secrets that had never been revealed. An actor being asked to take his shirt off during the audition to prove he was attractive enough. A leading actress enduring silent harassment throughout an entire season. And most terrifying of all, a real lion breaking loose and charging at a cast member, leaving everyone convinced they were about to witness a death on the set of a family sitcom. Today, the very people who lived on that island are finally telling everything. No more avoidance, no more silence. And by the time you finish this video, Gilligan's Island will never again be the innocent childhood memory you once knew.
Skipper, pass the spinach, please.
Gilligan is a 4th helping of spinach you had.
6th, I snuck 2.
Ginger, would you please pass the artichokes, my dear?
Sure.
Tina Louise and the cruel isolation that left her crying in the dressing room. To audiences, Ginger was the glamorous heart of Gilligan's Island, elegant, confident and radiant on that artificial tropical shore. But for Tina Louise, the actress behind the role, the set was a much colder place. She said that during her first days on set, she went out of her way to be polite. Every morning she walked in with a smile greeting everyone, but the response was always the same. Cold nods that made me feel invisible. At first, she thought it was simply a matter of time before she fit in. But the truth took a different, harsher turn uncovered years later by a supporting actor who claimed CBS hid the whole thing. One afternoon on set, just after Tina left the lunch area, Bob Denver reportedly muttered a half-joking line. This island would be more fun without the diva. Just a few words, but they ignited a quiet rebellion. Rumours spread faster than the script pages. By the end of the day, Tina had been labelled difficult, standoffish and uncooperative, despite never raising her voice, never making demands, never causing trouble. The result was a suffocating atmosphere on set. Group meals gradually became 2 separate worlds, the lively table filled with laughter, and the empty table where Tina sat alone. Some avoided eye contact, others only spoke to her when the scene required it. Tina later revealed in a rare interview, "I didn't know what I had done wrong. I just knew I felt more alone every day." The isolation grew so heavy that some days she would step into the makeup room, close the door, and break down in tears. Not because she was weak, but because she was being judged by a reputation someone else had created for her. The problem came from a deep clash of cultures. The rest of the cast worked with a laid-back, joking energy. Tina came from Broadway, disciplined, serious professional. One ill-timed remark was enough to twist that professionalism into the label diva, and Tina became the outsider on the very show she helped elevate. The island on TV may have been filled with laughter, but for Tina Louise, it was often a place heavier than any rock on the beach. Ginger was harassed, and the stranger left a message that terrified the entire crew. Among all the behind-the-scenes secrets the Gilligan's Island cast avoids discussing, one incident sends chills through anyone who remembers it. The break-in inside Ginger's dressing room, a moment CBS immediately silenced because it was far too dangerous to let the public know. It began like any other shooting day. Tina Louise had just finished a scene and returned to her dressing room to fix her outfit. But the moment she pushed the door open, she froze, a cold wave running down her spine as if she had stepped into a crime scene. This wasn't the harmless mess of a rushed actor. This was deliberate destruction. In the center of the room lay her dress, torn from the collar to the hem fabric scattered across the floor as if someone had ripped it apart in a fit of rage. Her lipstick had been snapped in half, the crushed tip smeared hard across the mirror, a message without words. But the object that made Tina's blood run cold was on the vanity table. A piece of lingerie that didn't belong to her, crumpled torn on one strap, placed exactly where she usually set her own clothes. No one knew where it came from. No one knew who had entered the room. Tina didn't scream. She didn't cry. She quietly stepped back, closed the door, and walked straight to security. The answer they gave her was even more terrifying than the room behind her. No one entered here according to access records, meaning either the system was bypassed or the intruder knew how to avoid it. From that day on, Tina changed all the locks, added triple security, and requested a male escort whenever she left set at night. Not because she thought she would be harmed, but because she understood someone was sending a message. And it was not a harmless one. CBS intervened immediately, but not to investigate. They were terrified that a sexual harassment scandal would destroy the image of their wholesome family sitcom. Within hours, a directive went out across the production. Do not mention this. Do not report this. Leave no paperwork. All traces were buried. No culprit was found. No one was punished. But for Tina Louise, the truth never faded. It was the day she realized that behind the glossy smiles on screen, there was a darkness on that cheerful island audiences would never see. The audition that nearly turned into a strip test inside CBS. Before he passed away, Russell Johnson finally revealed a shocking secret about the role that made him famous. To become the Professor. The character beloved by millions, Johnson had to endure one of the most humiliating moments of his life, right in the middle of a supposedly sacred CBS audition room. He walked in wearing a crisp white shirt and a neat tie, carrying exactly what a serious actor should bring: a script preparation and a fragile bit of hope. He finished reading his lines and the entire room went silent. Johnson assumed they were evaluating his performance. Then a producer looked up and asked casually, "Can you take your shirt off? We want to see if you're attractive enough." Not a misheard line, not a joke, not a performance test. A blatant demand strip if you want the role. Johnson glanced around the room. The camera was still rolling. 3 men sat with their clipboards stone-faced. No one looked uncomfortable. No one objected. This was Hollywood in the 1960s, where an actor's body was treated like merchandise to inspect before purchase. He answered quietly, sharp as a blade. "If you're looking for a swimsuit model, you've got the wrong man." Then he stood up, politely said goodbye, fully convinced he had just destroyed his one chance at landing a national TV role. But the shock wasn't over. Years later, a female production assistant revealed the truth. Before Johnson walked in, CBS executives had seriously discussed a plan to boost ratings by having the Professor appear shirtless in every single episode. Not for the character, not for the plot, just to attract female viewers during primetime. The idea was even written into an internal memo, an actual proposed strategy, and it would have been approved, if not for one man who crushed it immediately: Sherwood Schwartz, creator of Gilligan's Island. He slammed the proposal onto the table and said, "No. The Professor is here for his intellect, not his muscles." Viewers later adored Russell Johnson for his calm, intelligent, kind portrayal of the Professor. But they never knew that to preserve that image he had to refuse a humiliating demand on the very first day he auditioned. The Gilligan drowning scene cancelled after Bob Denver almost died for real. There is one scene from Gilligan's Island that the cast refused to watch for the rest of their lives because they knew that beneath the surface of the water that day, Bob Denver had truly come within seconds of dying. The script called for a simple comedic moment: Gilligan falls into an artificial lagoon and gets tangled in a fishing net. A light gag. Everyone thought Gilligan splashes around, Skipper panics, the others scramble to pull him up. The audience would laugh, the cameras would roll, and the show would go on. But the moment Bob Denver hit the water, everything went wrong. His costume shirt, long pants, canvas shoes absorbed water instantly, adding nearly 20 kilograms of weight, dragging him straight to the bottom. The net coiled around him, tightening around his legs and waist. Denver tried to surface, but every time his head reached the top, water flooded into his mouth and eyes, pulling him back under like an invisible hand. On shore, no one realized it. The director stared at the monitor and nodded. "Denver's acting is great today." Extras standing nearby thought it was all part of the performance. Only one person sensed the truth. Dawn Wells. She screamed, her voice cracking the air. "Bob is drowning. Cut the camera." But the director waved her off, a mistake that nearly cost her life, assuming Dawn was simply acting too well. Denver sank. He did not come back up. That shattered every illusion. A cameraman near the edge threw his equipment to the ground, dove into the water, swam down, forced his arms through the net and hauled Denver upward. When he finally surfaced, his face was purple, his breath broken, coughing like a man ripped out of a nightmare. On the shore, the entire crew stood frozen. No voices, no movement. No one understood how a simple sitcom gag had turned into the most terrifying moment of their careers. That day, Sherwood Schwartz issued an immediate order. Destroy all footage. CBS must never use it. We will not speak of this again. Years later, a leaked internal audio recording confirmed the incident was entirely real. And from that moment on, whenever Gilligan fell into the water on screen, no one laughed so freely anymore, because they knew beneath the surface of that artificial lagoon, this family sitcom had once nearly lost its soul. The escaped lion that nearly killed Dawn Wells, the secret CBS erased from history. There are countless behind-the-scenes stories that make the Gilligan's Island cast shiver when they remember them. But none haunt them more than the episode with the real lion, a sequence CBS erased so completely that fans didn't even know it existed for decades. It began as a routine shoot. Dawn Wells only needed to stand beside the cage and deliver a simple line of dialogue. The lion had been rented from a prestigious Hollywood animal training company, tethered with a chain as thick as a wrist, with the trainer standing inches away. They assured her, completely safe. That illusion collapsed in 1 second. Dawn heard a faint metallic clink, the sound of something hitting the ground. Then the lion roared, lowered its head and lunged toward her with terrifying force. She froze. No one on set reacted in time. No one screamed. The only person who moved was Bob Denver. From several meters away, Denver saw Dawn paralyzed in fear. He shouted so loud it stunned the entire soundstage. "Get back!" His voice was sharp as a blade slicing through the chaos. Denver sprinted toward her and swung his arm, striking the lion square across the snout. Not acting, not slapstick comedy, pure instinct, a man trying to save his friend from imminent death. The blow startled the animal for half a second, but that half second was enough. The trainer lunged forward, grabbed the lion's mane and yanked it backward. The chain snapped taut. A cloud of dust exploded, then silence. A suffocating silence that swallowed the entire studio. Dawn Wells later said, "I couldn't hear anything. I just saw its claws inches from my face." Sherwood Schwartz rushed over his face, white as chalk. He whispered, "We almost watched Mary Ann die on camera." He immediately ordered, "Cancel the entire scene. Recover every frame of footage. Do not let CBS see a single shot." The scene was erased from history, never on DVD, never mentioned in any behind-the-scenes feature. But for Dawn Wells and everyone on that set, the memory of those claws within centimeters of her face was something they carried for the rest of their lives. Mary Ann was ordered to wear shorter shorts every week. On screen, Mary Ann was America's girl next door, sweet, wholesome Sunny. But behind that innocent image was a truth Dawn Wells only dared to reveal years after Gilligan's Island ended. Every week, CBS demanded her shorts be made, shorter. Wells recalled, "They told me I was America's healthy beauty, so my outfits had to be youthful and eye-catching. But I didn't realize eye-catching meant shorter and shorter." Each week, the costume department would arrive, place a pair of shorts on the table, and ask in a gentle but unmistakably suggestive tone, "Shall we trim a little more?" At first, it was just a few millimeters, then a few more. By the 6th week, when Wells picked up the shorts, she was horrified they looked no different from swimwear. So short that simply sitting down risked exposing her on camera. Dawn protested, "I can't wear this. Standing up is already dangerous." CBS's response was colder than she expected. "If you won't wear it, we'll replace you." No negotiation, no concern for the actress. To them, Mary Ann was a product, and the product had to match the image they wanted to sell. Cornered Wells had to find her own way to protect herself. Late at night, in her small apartment near the studio, she secretly sewed an extra layer inside the shorts, a makeshift lining no one knew about. It kept things discreet on camera and protected her from the low-angle accidents that certain cameramen sometimes tried to capture during playful island scenes. Wells later said, "I just wanted to be Mary Ann, not a display piece." The bitter truth. Audiences loved Mary Ann for her innocence, kindness, and simple charm. But CBS always wanted her to be slightly less innocent. And when Dawn Wells looked back at the promotional photos from each season, she realized something chilling. The hemline of her shorts did disappear, little by little. The silent feud. Peak's Bob Denver demands Tina Louise's name be removed from the poster. From the outside, Gilligan's Island looked warm, cheerful, and full of laughter. But behind the scenes, even something as seemingly trivial as the order of names on a poster could fracture the entire cast. And the most persistent, deep-running conflict was the one between Bob Denver and Tina Louise. For years, fans assumed Tina was the difficult one, aloof, distant, even arrogant. But when the cast eventually began speaking honestly, a different truth emerged. It was Bob Denver who created the distance, and everything started with one request that seemed small, but was fueled by pure competition. One day, Denver walked into the CBS office and made a direct demand my name and Alan Hale's should come before Ginger's on the poster. That meant one thing. Tina Louise would be pushed to the very bottom, the least visible, least valued position. For an actress who had graced national magazine covers, this wasn't a simple demotion. It was a slap in the face. CBS refused immediately. They knew Ginger was a major draw for female viewers and one of the show's signature icons. Pushing her to last place wasn't just unfair, it risked creating a media scandal. But the damage was already done. Tina found out not from an executive, but from a crew member who happened to overhear the conversation. And from that moment on, the rift between Tina and Denver became permanent. They stopped looking at each other. No greetings, no small talk, no communication unless a scene forced them to speak. Directors later said the tension was so icy that even the camera felt like shutting down. Dawn Wells, the peacemaker of the cast, admitted in a later interview, "They hated each other. Not because of work, because of ego. In a family sitcom, viewers expect the cast to be close. But on that island, one request to change the poster credit order turned into a silent war that lasted the final 2 seasons." The scene too violent to air skipper hits Gilligan. So hard, Bob Denver was unconscious for 20 seconds. To viewers, the familiar taps on Gilligan's head were harmless slapstick. A running joke woven into the DNA of Gilligan's Island. But once, only once, that playful smack crossed the line into real danger. It was supposed to be an easy take. Gilligan says something foolish. Skipper gets annoyed, raises his hand and gives him a light bop exactly as they had done hundreds of times. But just a few centimetres of misalignment turned it into an accident. When Alan Hale brought his hand down, the impact landed not on the top of Denver's head as usual, but directly on his temple, one of the most fragile points of the skull. The blow was far harder than intended. Denver didn't yelp. He didn't flinch. He simply collapsed into the sand, motionless. For the first few seconds, everyone assumed he was acting really well. But there was no laughter, no exaggerated breathing, no movement at all. Only a heavy, suffocating silence spread across the entire set. No one dared run. In the camera was still rolling, and breaking a take without certainty was an unwritten taboo. It wasn't until 20 long seconds passed that Bob Denver finally opened his eyes, gasped, and rolled onto his side. His first words made the entire crew's stomach drop. "Are we using that take?" Alan Hale turned pale. The set erupted in panic. But Sherwood Schwartz didn't hesitate even for a moment. He stepped forward and said firmly, "Absolutely not." We almost turned a sitcom into a real injury. A simple slapstick gag had nearly become the darkest moment in Gilligan's Island history, and that was the day the cast understood one misplaced hit was all it took to turn this family sitcom into something terrifyingly real. The real snake trap scene cancelled after 3 crew members were bitten. If viewers think Gilligan's Island was just a light-hearted sitcom, the behind-the-scenes chaos of Season 1 proves the opposite. In one episode, the production decided to use real snakes to make the island feel more authentic. The animal handling company brought several small, harmless, gentle snakes, kept inside a wooden crate with a secure lid at least. That's what they claimed. The scene started in good spirits. The director wanted a shot where Gilligan accidentally triggers a snake trap, releasing a few snakes for comedic effect. But the moment a crew member lifted the lid even slightly, everything went wrong faster than anyone could react. Not 1, but 3 snakes shot out at lightning speed, faster than the trainer could shout a warning. They slithered across the floor, darted past lighting equipment, and headed straight toward the camera crew. In an instant, screams tore through the soundstage. 3 crew members standing near the crate were bitten on the ankles and calves. 1 collapsed. 1 threw his clipboard into the air as he tried to run. Another tried to kick the snake away, but the more he panicked, the tighter it clamped onto him. Tina Louise, standing off camera later, said, "I had never heard screaming like that on a sitcom set. It sounded more like a circus accident." The set plunged into chaos. Medics rushed in. The animal trainer stood frozen, unable to explain why the crate had failed. Several crew members fled the studio entirely. No one was seriously injured, but the fear lingered for weeks. Sherwood Schwartz immediately shut the scene down. The snake trap sequence never aired, and CBS never acknowledged the incident. But the screams from that day haunted many crew members, a reminder that sometimes a family sitcom can be far more dangerous than any action movie. The dark ending, never aired. Gilligan wakes up in a hospital bed and realizes the island was only an illusion. Of all the secrets Gilligan's Island buried, none is as shocking as the unaired ending revealed decades later by the UCLA Film Archive. A 16mm unfinished reel, but enough to show that Sherwood Schwartz once planned an ending no one could have predicted. In that scene, there was no golden sand, no palm leaves, no ocean waves. Only Gilligan lying motionless in a hospital bed, pale under a dim overhead light. When he opens his eyes, a doctor enters holding a chart and speaks in a low, steady voice. "You suffered psychological trauma from the shipwreck. What you remember is only an illusion. You created the island to survive. No skipper laughing, no bickering castaways, just emptiness and silence." A moment later, the door opens. Skipper steps in, but not the skipper from the island. This one is older, more tired, his face heavy with compassion. He places a hand on Gilligan's shoulder and says, "You nodded off again." Gilligan. Then the screen fades to black. No music. No explanation. Schwartz ultimately scrapped the ending. He simply said, "If they leave the island, the magic disappears." But the cast was more honest. That ending was too cruel. better they stay on the island forever. In the end, the island wasn't the place they were trapped. It was the only place their hearts were free. For more than half a century, Gilligan's Island has lived in the memories of millions as a joyful escape, a sunny island where laughter filled the evenings and every problem was solved with kindness and innocence. But as you've seen, behind that fake beach was an entirely different world. Near-fatal accidents, invisible. Emotional wounds, silent conflicts and buried secrets hidden deep within Hollywood. Yet perhaps those very hardships are what made Gilligan's Island a piece of television history, a miracle built from sweat, fear, and the stubborn determination of the people behind it. And no matter how hard CBS tried to bury the truth, it survived in the stories the cast carried quietly for decades. Stories that today you finally got to hear. Are you one of the people who grew up with Gilligan's Island? Which secret shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories straight from the people who lived them.